Why, good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor with you. Well, it is the day of Dera Sacha Sauda Chief Gurmeet Ram Rahim Singh's sentencing in a rape case. Now, there is tight security ahead of sentencing. Curfew remains enforced in Sirsa. We'll get you all the details on that big story and much more in the next 30 minutes. Let us start with the headlines. Sentencing of a Dera Sacha Sauda chief after conviction in 2002 rape case. Special courtroom set up in Rohtak jail in Haryana. Army on standby. Prime Minister asserts violence in the name of faith won't be tolerated. In monthly radio address Mann Ki Baat, says nobody has right to take law into their hands. Situation grim across several states. Bihar death toll rises to 482. 99 killed in Uttar Pradesh. Situation in Assam and Bengal improves. Hurricane Harvey hits Texas in the US with unprecedented rains. Catastrophic flooding in Houston area expected to worsen. And PV Sindhu settles for silver after losing in the women's singles final of the World Badminton Championships. President and Prime Minister hail her victory. Our top story through the day today, the CBI court in Haryana will pronounce the quantum of sentence following the conviction of Dera Sacha Sauda chief Gurmeet Ram Rahim Singh. The sentencing will be pronounced at 2:30 p.m. The Dera chief was convicted last week for rape in a 2002 case. The Haryana government has been directed by the Punjab and Haryana High Court to make travel arrangements by air of the CBI court judge Jagdeep Singh and his 2 staff members to Rohtak. Now, a special courtroom has been set up in the jail in Rohtak, where the Dera chief has been lodged since his conviction. The move comes after Dera followers indulged in large-scale violence on Friday after the sect leader's conviction on 2 courts in a rape case. Meanwhile, the death toll in the violence that erupted following the conviction of the Dera chief now stands at 38. Mobile internet services are to remain suspended in Haryana, Punjab, and all schools, colleges, educational institutions in Haryana's Panchkula, Rohtak, Kaithal and Ambala are closed. Now, police have registered 52 cases in connection with the violence and has arrested 926 people. 2 key Dera functionaries have been booked for sedition. Now, Haryana police say that maintaining law and order is their top priority. The army has also been kept on standby in Rohtak. The authorities have started identifying movable and immovable assets of the Dera Sacha Sauda chief as well on the directions of the court. Now, Punjab Chief Minister Captain Amrinder Singh had earlier made a tour of nearly a dozen areas in some sensitive districts in Malwa region of Punjab, which saw sporadic incidents of violence.
पुलिस के और सुरक्षा के प्रबंध किए जा चुके हैं और मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि कल वहां पे शांतिपूर्ण तरीके से कोर्ट की कार्रवाई को अमल में लाया जाएगा।
रोहतक में पैरामिलिट्री की हमने 23 कंपनी डिप्लॉय कर दी हैं और मैं समझता हूं कि सफिशिएंट है। और जो पुलिस फोर्सेज हैं डिस्ट्रिक्ट की है, उनके रेंज की पुलिस फोर्सेज हैं, कुछ बाहर के भी जो रेंज से बाहर की जो पुलिस फोर्सेज हैं वो भी उनको प्रोवाइड की हैं। पर्याप्त मात्रा में महिला पुलिस उनको दी गई है और भी बहुत सारी जो एंटी राइट इक्विपमेंट है, जो चीज की जरूरत है वो सारा कुछ दिया गया।
हम बेसिकली लॉ एंड ऑर्डर को इंटैक्ट रखना चाहते हैं रोहतक में। हमारी कोशिश यही है कि अननेसेसरी लोगों का जमावड़ा ना हो और मीडिया के माध्यम से भी मेरी ये अपील है कि अगर बहुत जरूरी काम नहीं है तो रोहतक कल अवॉइड कर लें, क्योंकि एक एक गाड़ी एक एक व्यक्ति की चेकिंग हो रही है और उस चेकिंग के दौरान यदि व्यक्ति के पास कोई अनस्क्रपलेस एलिमेंट मिलता है या वो अपनी रोहतक आने का रीजन हेतु नहीं बता पाता है तो उसको कस्टडी में लिया जाएगा, उसको डिटेन किया जाएगा।
दिल्ली पुलिस सिचुएशन को डील करने के लिए फुली प्रिपेयर्ड है। इसमें हमने एडिशनल फोर्सेस मोबिलाइज करी हैं, जिसमें हमने डिस्ट्रिक्ट रिजर्व फोर्सेस, हमारी कंटिजेंसी ड्रिल की फोर्सेस और साथ ही सेंट्रल पैरामिलिट्री फोर्सेस को भी इस इंतजाम में डिप्लॉय किया गया है। साथ ही सीपी रिजर्व को भी एक एंटी राइट इक्विपमेंट के साथ इस इंतजाम में हमने डिप्लॉय किया है।
हमारे तो इंतजाम पहले दिन से हुई थे, हमने कभी ढील नहीं की और हमारे डीजीपी यहाँ हैं, वो भी साथ जा रहे हैं और सब जो प्रबंध थे उस दिन वही प्रबंध रहेंगे।
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has asserted that violence in the name of faith of any kind won't be tolerated and the guilty would be punished. Now, speaking in his monthly radio program, Mann Ki Baat, the Prime Minister said that nobody has the right to take law into their own hands. He said that the Constitution provides scope for redressal of all kinds of grievances and justice to all. During his 30-minute broadcast, the Prime Minister also spoke about a number of other issues like richness of the country's diversity, asked people to undertake a cleanliness is service campaign ahead of the Gandhi Jayanti and mentioned about schemes like Jan Dhan for empowerment of the poor.
कि आस्था के नाम पर हिंसा बर्दाश्त नहीं होगी, चाहे वो सांप्रदायिक आस्था हो, चाहे वो राजनीतिक विचारधाराओं के प्रति आस्था हो, चाहे वो व्यक्ति के प्रति आस्था हो, चाहे वो परंपराओं के प्रति आस्था हो। आस्था के नाम पर कानून हाथ में लेने का किसी को अधिकार नहीं है। मैं आप सभी से एक आह्वान करता हूं कि एक बार फिर 2 अक्टूबर गांधी जयंती से 15-20 दिन पहले से ही स्वच्छता ही सेवा, जैसे पहले कहते थे जन सेवा यही प्रभु सेवा, स्वच्छता ही सेवा की एक मुहिम चलाएं, पूरे देश में स्वच्छता के लिए माहौल बनाएं, जैसा अवसर मिले, जहां भी अवसर मिले हम अवसर ढूंढें, लेकिन हम सभी जुड़े।
In order to Madhvi News now, Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu has said that the need of the hour is for people to stay united, shun violence and work towards equality in all aspects. Now, speaking after inaugurating an exhibition, New India Resolved to Achieve, to mark the Platinum Jubilee Quit India movement at the Anna University in Chennai, Naidu said that 7 decades after the country had achieved independence, issues such as poverty, illiteracy, gender inequality and caste discrimination were still prevalent. He urged the political leadership at the central and the state levels to work to fight these evils. He also termed the recent Supreme Court verdict on triple talaq a historic one and said it would go a long way in ending gender discrimination in the country.
The other day, the Supreme Court judgment about triple talaq also is a historic judgment, I must say. Forget about the religion. Forget about the religion. I am not talking of for religion at all. That's not the issue. Issue is gender discrimination. Same treatment to be given to women of all communities, irrespective of their religious beliefs. Populism is not going to help you in long term. You can be populistic, but what is required is long-term plan. There is a saying in English, teach the man to catch a fish rather than giving him fish. This is the message for all politicians. They should have long-term developmental programs to uplift the poorest of the poor.
And Justice Deepak Mishra will today take charge as the 45th Chief Justice of India. The swearing-in ceremony will be held at the Rashtrapati Bhavan at 9 a.m. 63-year-old Mishra had led the bench that awarded death sentence to Mumbai blast convict Yaqub Memon and Nirbhaya case accused. As the CJI, Mishra will hold office for the next 13 months till 2nd of October 2018. Justice Mishra is also famous as the judge who issued the controversial order that all cinegoers should stand in attention when the national anthem is played before a movie. It is he who is issuing periodic orders in a PIL for gradual blocking of pornographic sites. Justice Mishra assumed charge of the Office of Chief Justice, Patna High Court on 3rd of December 2009 and charge of the Office of the Chief Justice of Delhi High Court on 24th of May 2010. He was elevated as a Judge Supreme Court of India from 10th of October 2011. Justice Deepak Mishra will hear 72 cases on the first day of his office, including the Students' Islamic Movement of India ban case. On to some other news, the counting to the 4 by-poll assembly seats in Delhi, Goa and Andhra Pradesh has begun. Now, counting is on for the high-stakes Bhavana by-election in Delhi, which is being seen as a barometer of political influence in the city. 8 candidates are in the fray, but essentially the AAP, the BJP and the Congress are locked in a triangular contest. In Goa, counting of votes is taking place for 2 assembly seats today, Panaji and Valpoi. The electoral fate of Goa Chief Minister Manohar Parrikar, who contested the assembly by-poll from Panaji, will be decided. Now, counting is also taking place for the by-polls for Andhra Pradesh's Nandayal constituency. Big story coming in from Patna, where in a display of opposition unity against the BJP, political heavyweights including West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee and Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav shared a platform at RJD Chief Lalu Prasad's mega rally on Sunday. RJD Chief Lalu Prasad has already said the BJP Bhagao Desh Bachao rally would herald the decline of the BJP-led NDA in the 2019 Lok Sabha election. Rebel JDU leader Sharad Yadav, who is staring at an expulsion from the party for defying orders of not to attend the rally, was greeted warmly by Lalu Yadav. Yadav was accompanied by suspended JDU Rajya Sabha MP Ali Anwar, leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha Ghulam Nabi Azad, and Congress General Secretary CP Joshi were also present at the rally. The CPI leaders, former Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren and GVM President Babulal Marandi also attended the rally. Meanwhile, the BJP claimed that RJD Supremo Lalu Yadav's rally was a flop.
देश टूट के कगार पर खड़ा था, पलटी मार दिया। ये जो पलटी मारा, इसका अंतिम पलटी है। अब इस आदमी पर कोई भी पार्टी विश्वास करने वाला नहीं। शरद यादव यहाँ से ऐलान करता है, हिंदुस्तान को गठबंधन बनेगा। हिंदुस्तान में अकेले कहाँ की बात कर रहे हो? सारे हिंदुस्तान में
कोई भी बुरा काम करे, कोई भी आवाज निकाले, तो उसको आप जेल में भर दो, एक ही काम है। हमारा पार्टी इतना मेहनत से काम करते हैं, लेकिन जब भी हम लोगों पर कुछ नहीं कर पाया, इसीलिए हमारा पार्टी को लीडर जो पार्लियामेंट की पार्टी है, उसको जेल में भेज दिया।
अगर रथ रोक सकती है ये धरती, तो बीजेपी को भी रोक सकती है ये धरती।
The government soon plans to set up pharmacies at petrol pumps to make generic drugs accessible to all the masses. Experts, however, feel that the government must formulate a law to make it mandatory for the doctors as well to prescribe generic drugs for access to affordable medicines. Now remember, brand name drugs are copies of generic drugs that have exactly the same dosage, the same effects and side effects as well. Take a look at this report.
If your doctor prescribes you branded drugs instead of paracetamol, a generic drug, then he can face disciplinary action from the Medical Council of India. The Medical Council of India has asked all the registered medical practitioners to ensure that they prescribe drugs with generic names only. However, experts say that unless the government prepares a legal framework and give wide publicity to the regulations, the medical practitioners may continue to flout norms.
Government should ensure the potency, quality of the generic medicine. If it is not there, then blame will come to the only to the doctor, not to the manufacturer. Third thing is, all the generic medicine should be available at every medical store. Then only we can do it. Third thing is, if government is, again I am telling you, if government is really interested, government should start immediately reviving the IDPL company, Hindustan Antibiotics, which were the government run companies, which has been closed.
Despite stringent price control, big pharma companies managed to spend exorbitantly on marketing and branding of their drugs. Since advertisement of prescription medicines are not allowed in India, companies or medical representatives push products through doctors, chemists and distributors in lieu of freebies, junkets and incentives. The issue also resonated in the Rajya Sabha during the monsoon session as members raised the issue of the doctor-medico nexus of fleecing patients.
अस्पतालों में जेनरिक दवा मिल नहीं रही हैं। केमिस्ट और डॉक्टर्स के बीच जो मिली भगत है, डॉक्टर्स की राइटिंग कोई पढ़ नहीं सकता। जेनरिक दवा वो लिखे भी तो केमिस्ट कहता है इसकी जगह ये सब्स्टिट्यूट है। पेशेंट बेचारे को पता नहीं कि क्या है। इस तरह की इतनी बड़ी लूट है। दूसरा 127 अमेरिकन कंपनी को छूट सरकार ने दे दी है दवाओं में कि वो अपनी दवाओं को जेनरिक रखें, नॉन जेनरिक रखें और वो इतना प्रॉफिट कमा रही है। अगर जेनरिक दवा 1 रुपए की है तो नॉन जेनरिक दवा 50 रुपए की, सेम साल्ट।
Medicines account for 70 to 75% of a household's out-of-pocket expenditure on health in India. Out of all health expenditure, 72% in rural and 68% in urban areas is on buying medicines for non-hospitalized treatment. 70% of over 1 lakh crore domestic pharmaceutical market is dominated by branded generics. A generic drug costs 30 to 80% less than a brand name drug. A stern law shall make generic medicines more accessible to the common people. Deepak Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
And now a look at the flood situation across several states of the country. The situation remains grim across several states of the country. Now in Bihar, the death toll has risen to 482 due to the deluge. Nearly 1.71 crore people have been hit in around 19 districts of the state. Now, 28 NDRF teams and 16 teams of the SDRF, 630 army personnel are engaged in relief and rescue operations. Meanwhile, in Uttar Pradesh, the death toll has risen to 99. The number of flood-affected districts had reduced, however, from 24 to 16. 28 companies of the NDRF, 33 companies of PSC, along with the choppers of the Indian Air Force are engaged in relief and rescue operations. In Assam, the flood situation has improved. The third wave of flood has also claimed lives of 73 persons across the state, taking the total death toll to 157. Currently, 343 villages are reeling under floods and nearly 25,000 hectares of crop areas are still inundated. Meanwhile, in West Bengal, the situation has improved. The flood water has receded from most areas of the 6 affected districts in North Bengal. The death toll remains static at 90. Time for a very short break here. Up next, we have all the international and sports news. Stay tuned.
This is Kibutu in Arunachal Pradesh. East Point East on the map of India. Kibutu is dangerously close to the Chinese pressure point. We see first-hand and unseen areas of sand dunes and see how BSF is guarding this difficult territory along the Indo-Pak borderline. We are now slowly entering into the interior-most parts of the Sarkirik area. Indo-Tibetan Border Police Force justifies each word they sing. Watch super exclusive episodes of National Security Series only on Rajya Sabha television.
Hello and welcome. This is Amritan Rai and you're watching Constitutionally Yours.
Any tribal land cannot be transferred to the non-tribe.
Tribals of Tripura, they were depending on the forest.
There has been a growing demand amongst the tribal community that customary law should be.
Although they have codified customary laws, except for Tripura. So what is the initiative of the legislature?
There is no codified customary law as yet.
Watch Constitutionally Yours on Rajya Sabha television.
Thanks for staying with us. Now, 5 civilians, including a woman and 2 minor boys, were injured in a ceasefire violation by Pakistani forces along the line of control in the Poonch district of Jammu and Kashmir. The Pakistani troops resorted to unprovoked and indiscriminate firing from light to heavy weapons for nearly 45 minutes, targeting forward posts and villages in Shahpur sector on Sunday evening. The injured were first aid locally and then they were sent to district hospital. The officials say that the troops guarding the LOC retaliated to silence the Pakistani guns, and the exchange of fire caused panic among border residents. This is the first ceasefire violation by Pakistan in Poonch sector after senior army commanders from both the sides held a flag meeting at the line of control on 24th of August in an attempt to de-escalate tension. All right, let's get you some international news now. At least 13 people have been killed and many more have been injured in a car bomb attack in Afghanistan's southern province of Helmand. The attack on Sunday targeted a military vehicle in the district of Nawa, an area that has seen heavy fighting in recent weeks. The victims included both soldiers and civilians. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack, which comes 1 month after Afghan security forces say that they had recaptured Nawa from the Taliban. The deadly assault came days after a Taliban suicide bomber killed 5 civilians as he detonated a car filled with explosives at police headquarters in Lashkargah, which is Helmand's capital. Meanwhile, in another attack on Sunday, at least 19 people were injured in a blast near a market in Helmand district. And there has been a series of attacks in Afghanistan in recent months since the Taliban launched its so-called spring offensive. And a big story from Myanmar, where the government has evacuated at least 4,000 villagers amid ongoing clashes in northwestern Rakhine state. This as thousands of Rohingya Muslims have fled across the border to Bangladesh. Fighting involving the military and hundreds of Rohingyas across northwestern Rakhine continued, with the fiercest clashes taking place on the outskirts of the major town of Muang Dav. Now, dozens of international aid workers from various organizations who were stationed in Muang Dav were seen leaving for Rakhine state's capital on Sunday as the situation worsened. The death toll from the violence that erupted on Friday with the coordinated attacks by Rohingya insurgents has now climbed to 104. The vast majority militants plus 12 members of the security forces and several civilians. The government said it was investigating whether the members of international aid groups have also been involved in an alleged siege by insurgents of a village in Rakhine. Now, India raised a serious concern over the violence and extended its strong support to the Myanmar government. Big story coming in from the United States, where Storm Harvey has hit the southern state of Texas with unprecedented rains. Now, after coastal areas cleared up, the storm shifted its attention inland, where 2 people were killed. Now, heavy rains are predicted to linger for several days, with the Weather Service issuing a warning for a flash flood emergency, saying that catastrophic flooding in the Houston area is expected to worsen and could become historic. Several states and the U.S. military are sending emergency workers and equipment to Texas.
People wading in knee-deep water, scrambling to get their loved ones and belongings away from the danger zone. As Tropical Storm Harvey continues to batter Texas with heavy rains, up to 2,000 people have been rescued from floods in and around Houston. Worse still, hopes for an immediate respite from Harvey's wrath is unlikely, as the Weather Service calls the flooding unprecedented and warns things may become dire.
This is a very, very dangerous storm with catastrophic consequence, and folks need to not underestimate that. It is going to be a sustained challenge for the coming days. Many times folks wrongly presume the wind event is going to be the most challenging event. I've seen over the course of my career, it was actually the water event, and we are in for a real significant water event in the coming days.
Harvey's rains have left many East Texas rivers swollen to their banks or beyond. 2 people have been confirmed dead since the storm made landfall on Friday, and authorities say that the toll is likely to rise. Inside Houston, a disaster is unfolding. where more than 6.5 million people have been affected. Roads have turned into rivers, along which evacuees are being taken to safety in boats. 250 roads and motorways have been closed, schools have been shut, Houston airports have also been shut, with all commercial flight operations being stopped until further notice. Many shelters have been opened, people have been advised to climb to their roofs and call for help if necessary. President Donald Trump would visit Texas on Tuesday to survey storm damage.
I was living in an apartment upstairs, but now I was in the first floor. I lost all my furniture. I lost everything in mine.
Certainly there was no way to predict the amount of rain and all the bayous, every one of them coming out like this. But I want to also assure the public that we are doing everything we can to be there for you.
Harvey is the most powerful hurricane to hit the U.S. since 2004. It made landfall on the Texas coast on Friday night with 130 miles per hour winds and wrought destruction on Corpus Christi and small towns of Rockport and Port Aransas. Though it was quickly downgraded into a tropical storm, Harvey continues to spawn tornadoes and lightning in Texas, with its worst effects on Houston, which is one of the country's most flood-prone cities. The city is also home to large oil industry facilities, which are dangerously vulnerable to flooding. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And on to sports now. Rio Olympic silver medalist PV Sindhu settled for silver as she lost in the women's singles final of the World Badminton Championships in Glasgow on Sunday. The ace Indian shuttler lost to Japan's Nozomi Okuhara 19-21, 22-20, 20-22. Fourth-seeded Sindhu maintained the lead till the first 14 points. For India, this is still a historic edition as for the first time the country's shuttlers are returning with 2 medals. Saina Nehwal won a bronze on Saturday. Now, President Ramnath Kovind and Prime Minister Narendra Modi have hailed Sindhu's victory and have congratulated her.
Silver medal presented by the President.
And India beat Sri Lanka by 6 wickets in the third ODI at Pallekele to win the 5-match series 3-0. During the third ODI, MS Dhoni remained not out on 67 runs, while Rohit Sharma struck an unbeaten 124 as India reached the target of 218 with 29 balls to spare. This is the 7th successive bilateral series victory against Sri Lanka. It lost an ODI series to the island nation in 1997. Now, India will take on Sri Lanka in the final 2 ODIs of the series on 31st of August and 3rd of September.
Runs once again scored by that man there.
And the US Open Tennis Championship will begin at the Flushing Meadows in New York from today. Britain's world number 2 Andy Murray has pulled out of the final Grand Slam of the year because of a hip injury. He joins 12 times Grand Slam winner Novak Djokovic and 2016 US Open champion Stan Wawrinka in missing the tournament due to injuries. The number 2 seeded Simona Halep will face a former world number 1 Maria Sharapova in the tough first round match, while world number 3 Roger Federer will face American Francis Tiafoe in the first round of the tournament. That's it from me and my team in this edition of News. But news and updates continue on your channel. Thanks so much for your time.